Welcome to The Blue Dot, Northern Kentucky's premier political podcast, brought to you by the Kenton County Democratic Executive Committee. Welcome back to the Blue Dot podcast, everyone, where we talk about the kitchen table topics affecting those in the bluegrass and beyond. I'm Natalie MacDonald.
And I'm Brian Koehl. Hey, today we're shining a light on labor, specifically the role of the AFL-CIO, the leadership in Northern Kentucky, and why organized labor matters more than ever in the bluegrass state.
That's right, Brian. Later today, we'll be joined by a special guest, Tim Donoghue. He's the president of the Northern Kentucky AFL-CIO Labor Council, which is a driving force behind worker advocacy, union solidarity, and community empowerment in our region. But before we get to all of this, let's talk about what happened this weekend. People took to the streets to voice their opposition to the policies and the autocracy of the Trump administration, for sure.
Yep. No Kings 2.0. It promised to be the largest mass demonstration in the history of the United States, and it did not disappoint. Over 2,700 separate rallies across all 50 states and a handful of foreign cities. I saw Berlin, London, one little city in Sweden somewhere, I think, it was quite interesting. And a total of more than 7 million participants in the U.S. And very significantly, the demonstrations were peaceful, even joyful. Americans banding together to exercise one of their most fundamental constitutional rights.
Yeah, and it passed the previous record, which was the No Kings rally back in June, which saw 5.5 million people. And before that, it was the Women's March in 2017, which saw 4.6 million people. It was amazing. I was there. It was great.
Yeah, I was there too. I did not see you. I think we were at the same place in Cincinnati down in Smale Park. Yeah, It was awesome. So many people. You know, while the Republicans and the president tried to build these up as hate America protests, a ridiculous line, led by violent, radical, left-wing domestic terrorists, pro-Hamas, Antifa, and Marxist elements of the Democratic Party, they were instead quite visibly massive gatherings of everyday Americans demonstrating their love of this country. And just as importantly, their extreme displeasure with the lawless fascists currently trying to rule over us. And there was virtually no violence. 7 million people across 2,700 locations and nearly zero violence. There were a handful of arrests in Denver and Los Angeles, a couple other cities, for minor infractions such as failure to disperse. You know, some people got a little carried away, trespassing, minor assault, and a few other acts of aggression by counter-protesters. But most police departments across the country reported no altercations and no arrests.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. I think, like you said, there were some arrests on those counter-protesters, but all in all, it was really just our pro-democracy, pro-American demonstrators out there. We say, well done to you. We showed our strength through peace, and that was just a really beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And all of this success really just shows the strength and solidarity that we have across all people. And it must have really triggered Donald Trump because he turned around and did something egregiously un-American. I'm sure you've seen it by now, Brian. He posted that video of him piloting a fighter jet, wearing a crown, literally dumping what we'll call sewage on demonstrators marching in the streets. Yeah, it's just undeniable proof what he really thinks about his constituents.
That's true. And let's say it might have been human sewage. We'll put it there. Yeah, it was pretty funny because I heard one pundit or somebody said, you know, the first response from the White House about all the protests was, who cares? And then later that night, Trump posts this AI video. So obviously, at least there's one person who really cared. You know, some outlets have been suppressing that video as being too graphic or distasteful. Are you kidding me? Instead, we should make sure every American sees it and understands the context. And actually, the funny thing is, that video is really an accurate metaphor for the Trump presidency as he craps all over us with his clueless economic policies, his violent rhetoric and actions, his attacks on civic, educational, and governmental institutions, and his blatant violations of the Constitution and the rule of law.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely didn't need a fake video to know that he's dumping on America. I mean, we see that every day. He's literally tearing down the White House. The East Wing is gone, as we speak. But I want to take a step back just for a minute and to think about what it means for a president to do something so intentionally and purposefully to divide Americans. I love presidential history. I collect presidential memorabilia. Some of it's behind me.
Hmm.
This pageantry and their traditions and the general feeling of pride we have for the office, despite if we disagree or agree with the person who's holding it. And this really just amplifies or exemplifies why Trump is such a shameful and sad stain on the office that he holds. But what I do know, Brian, I know that one day decency will be restored. And I think history is going to look back on him and those who bent the knee to appease him as a lesson on how we failed as a nation. We're no longer a beacon of greatness to the rest of the world, rather it will be a reminder of how we failed as a people and as a country to be the best that we can be, and how we failed showing our children how it's possible to be decent during divided times.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your last point about setting an example for our children, many of us have failed in showing tolerance and compassion for those we disagree with. I know for sure I have been guilty of that. Okay. But at the No Kings rally, as well as from the videos I watched from other demonstrations across the country, I saw a lot of families together exercising their First Amendment rights and clearly demonstrating their love of our country. The kids I witnessed were having fun, many dressed up and waving signs, and also learning a good lesson in democracy. So maybe we are all recovering a little from the shock and awe of the first 10 months of the Trump onslaught and are starting to take back not only our country, but also our decency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was there with my nieces, and it was just so fun to see them. They were just so fired up. And
Great.
it was great. Great to see them out there and really, really standing for what they stand for. And it was clear that while all the protesters who were out were there to oppose just a wide range of issues, everyone was united in the mission to protect America from the masked, unmarked ICE agents that are disappearing both citizens and non-citizens. United to protect America from the military acting as law enforcement and agents of intimidation on our streets, and to protect the country from policies that slash educational resources, environmental protections, take power away from the people through gerrymandering, and a president who is doing everything he can to divide us against each other. So all of these issues were kind of together by the 7 million protesters for the love of their country, for the love of democracy, of constitution and freedom. And that's just the beginning. I saw hundreds of American flags at the rally. I know you and I both
Yep.
had ours. And I also
Yep.
saw a good number of Union flags down there too. So we're going to have to ask Tim about that.
Yeah. And understandably so. Labor is under attack right now, as are all jobs across the country. We are entering week 4 of the government shutdown. Manufacturing is slowing down, job cuts are up, and tariffs are absolutely devastating families and businesses. So while Republicans are using working people as props in mass firings, Democrats are fighting for health care across the country and showcasing a powerful alternative to bring people together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the segment of Kentuckians who are getting hurt right now, the worst, are our farmers. So I have a little
Mhm.
pop quiz for you, Brian. Do you know what Kentucky's largest cash crop is?
Well, not tobacco anymore, I'm sure of that. And let's see, I guess bourbon is not considered a crop, right?
I guess
If it
not.
was, yeah, if it was, I'd take up gardening for sure. So, thinking about the agricultural crisis in the US right now, I'm going to guess soybeans.
That's right. Soybeans. In fact, soybeans in Kentucky support over 9,600 jobs and contributes $582.6 million in GDP to Kentucky's economy. And China was our biggest buyer. However, they haven't purchased anything since May. And now they're buying from Argentina, who just got a
Yeah.
$20 billion bailout from Trump. Meanwhile, our farmers are losing $200 per acre due to these tariffs.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face. Plus, I just found out that there may be an additional $20 billion raised for Argentina through private banks and sovereign wealth funds. So $40 billion, possibly a total going to assist a South American country while we are in a shutdown with Republicans trying to cut funding for America's health care and food security. I mean, whiskey tango foxtrot.
Right?
Trump's record on labor is just as damaging. He's gutted collective bargaining rights for over 1 million federal workers, cut off union funding, and even suggested firing striking workers, illegal under the National Labor Relations Act, or the NLRA. His Project 2025 agenda would go even further, dismantling public sector unions and weakening private ones.
Yeah, and it's worth remembering what unions have fought for, right? Unions fought for fair wages, safe working places, health care, retirement, the 40-hour work week, and child labor laws. So proving they're not only good for workers, but for the economy. And union workers typically earn more, they have better benefits, and they also help strengthen democracy. They boost voter turnout and by educating their members. And that's really why Democrats have long supported labor, backing collective bargaining initiatives, opposing right to work laws, and pushing legislation like the PRO Act, which is the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, which is a Democratic led bill that aims to expand labor protections in the United States. And it has passed the House a few times, but it just can't get past the Republican-led Senate.
Yeah, our friends, the Republicans, on the other hand, continue to push anti-union policies. A Pew Research poll shows that 75% of Democrats view unions positively, compared to just 35% of Republicans. And in 2024, a majority of union members voted for Kamala Harris. Labor unions offer a path to shared prosperity and economic justice. The choices we make at the ballot box and in policy will determine whether that path grows stronger or weaker.
And that's a really staggering divide, too, right? When you look at the difference, the way that Democrats view versus Republicans. I mean, we're talking about working people and supporting working people. And if we zoom in just on Kentucky, the AFL-CIO, which is the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, is the largest federation of unions in the United States, and it represents thousands of workers across industries. And they're fighting for fair wages and safe working places, for sure.
Yeah, and here in Kentucky, Governor Andy Beshear has been a strong ally of labor. He has vetoed anti-union legislation, restored prevailing wage protections, and appointed union members to key positions in the state's labor cabinet. He also joined striking workers on picket lines, including the UAW strike at Ford's Kentucky truck plant, declaring himself a, quote, proud pro-union governor.
And he is, for sure. And going back again to the economy, this pro-union stance that he has also helped to attract over $36 billion in private investment, in union membership has grown under his leadership here in Kentucky. According to the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy, all of this has boosted several sectors, construction and energy and manufacturing. So it's just really, really good for the economy.
Yeah, and despite the right to work laws, Kentucky workers are organizing and demanding better working conditions. As AFL-CIO President Dustin Reinstedler said, "We're witnessing an incredible resurgence of energy and unity. The future of labor in Kentucky is young, diverse, and energized." And now let's bring in our guest, Tim Donoghue, president of the Northern Kentucky AFL-CIO Labor Council. Tim, welcome to Blue Dot, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you. So let's start with the basics for our listeners who may not be familiar with what the Northern Kentucky Labor Council is and what the mission is. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Northern Kentucky Labor Council is actually an arm of the Kentucky State Labor Council. I have 10 counties up here I serve. Our mission is mostly I will assist and help all the local unions and other affiliates with their endeavors. We also promote legislation that's good for and oppose legislation that's detrimental to our workers. And the third thing is we act as a channel to pass information between affiliates and other people with common interests. That's our three biggies.
Yeah, Tim, I was looking at your website, and I was really struck by this statement. You were talking about your mission, the statement in your About Us section of your website, which I felt read like a great mission statement. I'm going to quote it because I think it's fantastic. It says, quote, "We mobilize our members and community partners to advocate for social and economic justice, and we strive daily to vanquish oppression and make our communities better for all people, regardless of race, color, gender, religion, age, sexual orientation, or ethnic or national origin." I think that's very refreshing to hear against the backdrop of the anti-DEI actions of the Trump administration, the general anti-union, actions that are going on. Have you seen impacts to your membership, or have you had any other operational adjustments you've had to make to continue to protect your workers and execute on your mission in light of, some of the policies that we're seeing today?
Our biggest impact right now is him firing the federal workers. I've got the IRS
Right.
Covington. I got a lot of Treasury workers here, and just with them being terminated, that's a big impact to us. So we're trying to help them do whatever we can. And then as it goes farther on, there's going to be other impacts to this. I got people at the airport. Some of them are working now and not
Right.
being paid. And we don't know how long that's going to go on.
Yeah.
Exactly. It just seems like and I didn't even think about when we were preparing for this, how the government shutdown is affecting this as well. So, I mean, all of these people are just waiting for their paychecks.
Yeah.
And
some of them are still
it's,
working. They're not being
yeah,
paid.
exactly. Exactly. Well, let's go back just a little bit about how you kind of got started. I know you've been a strong voice for labor rights in Kentucky for a while now. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the labor movement.
Well, I worked for Cincinnati Bell for 37 years, and I was working in Kentucky. I was only like 26 years old, and I felt like they were doing things to us that were contrary to our contract. And when I started questioning them about it, finally somebody wound up and said to me, if you're going to do this kind of talking, that maybe you ought to be a union steward. That's the worst thing you could have said, because that's what I became. So,
That's fantastic.
yeah. And so in the early 80s, I was elected to our executive board. And that's when I got interested in politics in Kentucky. So I joined the Northern Kentucky Labor Council. So I've been with them 41 years. I've been president the last 21. Yeah. So I've been retired from Cincinnati Bell since 2008. So this is my full-time $50 a month job.
Well, we appreciate your willingness to pitch in there and do what it takes for labor. And I mean, just in general, the economic health of Kentucky and the nation, a lot of it lies on the backs of the union. And besides the challenges to the federal workforce, some of the people being let go, et cetera, with changing technologies and AI and many of the things that are out there, what are some of these challenges as you're looking down the road that you're facing and know that you're going to have to address or are currently addressing?
Well, we have to get our workforce re-educated and have them ready for these new jobs. We're not going to let these companies just toss us away like a disposable lighter. We want to be ready for the new jobs, the new workforce, and we want to be part of it.
Does that entail, is that self-funded type of, you work with corporations and partners in doing that re-education? How does that work from a real logistical nuts and bolts type
Well,
of
we'll work with our
perspective?
contractors in that and get them involved in this to get the training. But if they can't or won't, we will look for other sources to get the training for them. Some of our locals have their own training programs. We'll put them through there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm curious, thinking about what's in the future and you being in it for so long, can you talk about what were the biggest changes you've seen? I guess what I want to ask is it tougher now than it was maybe 20 years ago for labor? Or do you feel this backlash with the current administration, or is it something you can ebb and flow throughout the years and we're going to come out stronger because of it?
Yeah, this is like a pendulum. What we're going through today, when I first started, I went through this with Reagan. We've been through this several times. It'll swing back. For as bad as it got in Kentucky, we still got Beshear, and he's done a lot for us and for the state of Kentucky. So every time it looks like it's really getting dark, there's a candle being lit somewhere.
That's refreshing. We had Jerome Bowles, who's the president of the local NAACP chapter, and he made Natalie and myself feel much better by the end of our interview, because he said the same thing. It's cyclical, and it's not the first time we've been through this. We have contingencies in place. We know how to address these things, and new stuff that comes down, we can think on our feet and get it done. So it's good to hear that there's some hope. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about how Governor Beshear has been a pretty strong advocate. I know he's been really fighting the right to work laws. And can you talk to us a little bit about those right to work laws?
Well, right to work laws do not benefit union contracts. They do the contrary. Right to work law says if you're in a union shop and you join in, or even while you're in there, you can quit the union, but I still have to represent you. So what it is, it's a union busting tactic. People are spending a lot of their treasury on people who they're not getting any dues from. And they know this, so they bring people into the workforce that they know are non-union, and we wind up supporting them. If he gets in trouble or even has to go to arbitration, we have to pay for it, although we're getting no dues from him. If we fight and go on strike, he doesn't strike with us, but he gets the raises. And they know that. It's, it's just a way to weaken us.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the research on the right to work, and the states that have right to work laws actually have some higher employment rates and some economic growth. But on the flip side, the wages are lower and the quality of life and the living conditions are lower. So, it's high employment, but low pay, low standards, or reasonable employment, plus people are living with dignity and can actually plan for the future and have a future. I'm sure you're battling that conversation, fighting that on a daily basis.
Right. And also look at their education standards. All of them are right to work at the bottom end of the education scale.
Ooh, it's a good point.
They push for a dumb workforce. They try to dumb everything down, and we suffer on account. Working families suffer on account of that.
Yeah. So what about some of the victories you've had? We talk about all the challenges and everything. I mean, what are some of the accomplishments your union or yourself personally have had over your years that you're proud of, and things that you can build upon?
Well, our biggest victory came when the council and the Democrats up here, when Campbell and Kenton County pushed to get Governor Beshear elected as governor. That was our biggest victory by far. We all worked together. Northern Kentucky hasn't pushed a Democratic candidate in years. And for those two counties both to, support Governor Beshear, that was a big victory.
Yeah, for sure. We were watching those election results roll in, was just so great to see. So that was amazing. I'm curious also about, I know in this last election with Kamala Harris, some of the unions came out a little bit against Kamala Harris. And I don't know if you have any insight into that, kind of like where is that slipping, and what can we do to get that support back for the unions?
Well, the Teamsters were the culprits of that. They even spoke at the convention for
Right.
Trump. But they never endorsed him, but they spoke there. But it gave that image that they were. But we got a lot of work to do in this area. A lot of my members vote Republican. And, we try to teach them. We got to separate their work life from the other parts. You can talk about guns or you can talk about abortion, but you better be looking at your wallet. That's what we preach to them, educate our members and the general public. There's too many one issue people that are ruining it for a lot of other people over that one issue.
Well, we've heard that in a lot of our interviews that we've done. So many of our guests say the exact same thing. They get hung up on guns, Second Amendment, or abortion, or some of the other hot button topics. And you really have to look at it overall, like a trending. Where's a person going? You're not going to get everything you want. Which person's going to benefit me the most? And I believe putting food on the table and security, for the future for your family, is far and away the top priority. It typically is, right? It's the economy,
Right.
stupid, is what everybody says. And that's what it boils down to.
Absolutely.
As being part of the Kenton County Democrats and the Democrats in the area here, what can we do to either support labor or get that message out that exactly what you said? This is about the economy. This is about your pocketbook. This is about your living, your livelihood.
Right. Now, this is my own personal feeling. I know I'll upset some people. We got to stay away from some of the issues that only belong to certain parts of the Democratic Party and focus on the mainstream Democrat. And that's their dinner table, their wallet, their pension, and Social Security. Some of the other stuff, we turn off more people than we turn on. And we got to stop doing that and bring more people into the tent. Because there's a lot of people that want to come in, but we scare them.
Yeah, and I think some of that is other people writing the narrative for us.
Right.
And what we talk about here on the Blue Dot are the kitchen table topics that affect Kentuckians and those beyond the bluegrass. And I think that's what it is. And so I think a lot of what maybe these people are scared of, as you say, isn't really what we're talking about so much all the time. It's what they are saying that we're talking about, and they're writing that narrative for us. So we're trying to do exactly what we're doing here and talk about the issues exactly what you said that matter to people, everyday people.
And we say this to candidates. Quit letting the other party tell me who you are. You stand up and tell me who you are. We hear so much about these people from the other side, and you're not going to hear it straight there.
Yeah, we need to ignore all that, turn that off, and just step forward and be ourselves and just keep pushing.
Right.
Take that momentum and keep running with it. But I think a lot of community action and community activities are a big part of that. And I know that the Labor Council is involved in some of that. Are there, from a non-working, more community-related type of activities or events or things that you engage in, fundraising or those types of things? Could you tell us
Yeah,
a
we
little
do
bit
some
about
fundraising.
those?
And I've also, in the past, have served on the United Way board. So we do work with them. And then also at our Christmas
Okay.
parties, and that I've worked before with the Women's Crisis Center. We try to find organizations that we think desperately need our help, and we do that. And then we have some people in our council this year at Christmas. They're going to serve about 1,400 meals down at the convention center for homeless on Christmas Day. And that's the kind of things we'd like to get involved in the
That's
community.
great.
And then we also buy flyers and the banners and that for the veterans. We put them out in Campbell County. They have a day out at one of their grave sites out there.
Yeah.
So we like to get involved. We need to and
Yeah.
like to be involved in the community.
And you guys do the golf outing as well?
Yeah, that's
So
one of our fundraisers for PAC. That and our fish fry are only two fundraisers.
Well, I am not good at golf, but I like to golf. So as long as bad golfers can join,
Natalie, they yell for when I take a practice swing. Yeah.
Sounds like you're in, Nat.
And fish fries are always good,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's a great community event.
It's one of our purposes, like with that fish fry. You have all these people who can sit down and talk to each other and discuss ideas and that. And that's one of the great things about it. It's another channel for these people to sit down and talk. And it's not only Democrat. We'll get Republicans, some of our members in there. It's a chance to sit down and talk to them and let them hear your side of the story or hear from the other people.
And that's what we need more of. Absolutely. Just people talking and sitting down.
Yeah.
And
any of those opportunities just to speak to each other that are outside of the contentious environment. Yeah.
So what's next for the Labor Council? What do you guys have on the docket? What do you got on the agenda that you're working on for the rest of this year and starting in the 2026?
We're winding down for this year. We'll start our fundraising for the Christmas party, and that, of course, coming up. I think my big thing starting next year is we've got an opportunity here, because I think once people see what this big bill is going to do to them and get the first effects in 26, we as labor need to be ready to stand up and just not say, I told you so, but to be ready to give some help and some information to them to how we can correct this and start building our Democratic Party to take this back. Because I think there's going to be a lot of upset people as soon as this happens. And I want to be ready.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. Just know it's coming. Again, like you said, it's a pendulum swinging. You've been there before, have contingencies in place, have plans in place. And for that as well, I told you so is not going to get anybody anywhere. It's like, okay, we're in this together. How about this? What can we do to repair it, to make it better? So I think that's a great approach. All right. Well, Tim, thanks so much for joining us and for the work you do.
I just want to say thanks for having me. I mean, that's part of our problem is we got to get out and be on social media and be seen by the public and let them hear what we're saying we're doing, not what the other side's saying we're doing. I'm here to help. We're not, as they call us, union thugs or union bosses. I'm a member of this community, and I want to see it grow, and I want to see it, improve. And I think that working together, we can do it. I really don't care what party you're in. At the end of the day, we got to do this together, or we're all going to suffer.
100%. And if people want to learn a little bit more about what you do, is there anywhere we could drive them to?
Go to KentuckyLaborCouncil.org.
Sounds fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Thank you. To our listeners, if you want to learn more or get involved, visit nkyclc.org. And remember, solidarity isn't just a slogan, it's a way forward.
And as you know, we like to end each podcast with a call to action. The Kenton County Democrats are holding a Next November Starts Now rally and fundraiser on November 13th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the American Legion in Latonia. We've invited all of the local candidates to attend so you can join us and have a chance to meet them in person. It'll be a good time. We have food. There's going to be a bar. There's going to be a DJ. So it should be a really good time. Would love to have you come out and join us. And how about you, Brian? What do you have up your sleeve?
Well, as much as I would like to just bask in the afterglow of the wildly successful No Kings 2.0, we have to continue to march forward. I just heard House Rep Eric Swalwell on a podcast this morning. He said that politics is a lot like sports when it comes to momentum. When you have the momentum, you have to capitalize on it and not let off the pressure. And we have that now. While we have the momentum, the other side begins flailing and losing its way. And with No Kings and that momentum behind us, the indivisible founders, Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin, are looking to expand the movement beyond mass protest and leverage that energy we have amassed towards collective actions to apply that pressure to the enablers and on the enablers of the Trump administration. For instance, as consumers, huge opportunity to maybe boycotting businesses that have bent the knee to Trump and Republicans, or as organizers, making sure to call out and uncover the actions of corporate and civic leaders who are capitulating or actively assisting the Trump administration's fascist takeover. I personally intend to stay as well informed as possible these more, shall we say, refined resistance tactics as they develop, and I'll keep our listeners in the loop. And also, just very important, there are over 50,000 elections taking place across the nation this election day, November 4th. A lot of people don't think about that because it's an off year. I invite everyone to take the time now, if they haven't already, to get to know the races that are coming up and where the candidates stand. Even though this is an off year from an election standpoint, please get involved and don't sit it out. A school board, city council, or a county commissioner race may seem unimportant, but these roles are the fundamental building blocks of a statewide and national movement back to government for the people and based on the rule of law. In short, especially now, there is no such thing as an election that doesn't matter.
That's right.
Please plan to vote and have a plan on how to vote, whether it's mail-in, early voting, or showing up to the polls on November 4th. Your voice matters a lot.
100%. And that really goes back to what we talked about with David Pepper. It's that grassroots, precinct level action that makes the biggest difference. And so, yeah, keep that momentum going for sure. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you for joining. We hope to see you at our next canvassing event or at our next rally and fundraiser, where we will all come together to fight for a better future.
Yeah, and we'll be back in 2 weeks, where we will begin our military month, and we're going to be kicking it off with George Wright, former Army spokesman at the Pentagon, retired soldier and chairman of the Kentucky Democratic Veterans Council.
I am so excited to talk with him. And don't forget, you can also join the conversation at our Facebook and Instagram pages or at blue.podcast.com. And if you like listening to our podcast, consider donating to help fund it, which you can do by clicking on the donate link at blue.podcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep the facts in focus, and never stop fighting for what matters. Peace out, everybody.